Hey guys, Daryl here with a Sorrow Eternal podcast special, I guess you could call it. I just wanted to take some time here to start a discussion about Spotify. When Spotify launched in the US, which is now some time ago, geez, I don't even remember when, we were both, Justin and I, big proponents of Spotify and what they were doing because it was billed as an alternative to piracy. Basically, now you don't have to pirate stuff. You can listen to it on Spotify when it's released, and that the bands were still going to make some money, so that way you were not robbing them of everything. But over the course of the last year or so, looking at the economics of Spotify and how the money gets distributed, it's brought up a lot of questions. More questions than answers, as far as I can tell, about how it's really helping the music industry versus, what is it doing to help rather than seeing it die in front of our eyes. So we've been doing a little research, both on their site, various other articles and such, and what the main theme seems to be with Spotify is that I hate to use this analogy, but the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Because Spotify, the way they pay out their money, quick aside on this, the free service that most people use is really ad-driven. So the ads, as people watch ads and stuff, money gets distributed based on that. But the pay version, which is $10 a month, they have 5 million or so users who pay that $10 a month, $120 a year. So basically this year, at 5 million users, you're talking about $600 million. So that's a lot of money. Now, 70% of that, between the advertising and the subscription fee, gets paid out to the long list of people who have their hand out. Rights holders, artists, labels, publishers, performing rights societies, distributors, etc. So now, since last spring, about a year ago, they've paid out $250 million. They've paid out $500 million total in royalties to those people. Now, here's where this starts to... right now that all sounds great. So you listen to stuff on Spotify and the bands are going to make money because there's $500 million to pay out. Great. However, the distribution of the money is fair in the sense that, as they note on their site, if you get 2% of the total streams on Spotify, you would then get 2% of the total revenue, or 2% of the royalties, rather. Now, again, that 2% will get passed down to labels, publishers, rights holders, artists, etc. So by the time it gets down to the band itself, there's not much to have left. Now, something else that they've noted here is that really this is a long-term solution, not a short-term solution. So in the long term, artists stand to make more than they would on traditional album sales, both digital and physical. But for right now, that becomes very tough. Now think about this. So 2% of the plays gets 2% of the royalties. So if you're a band like, let's say, Fall Out Boy, Fall Out Boy's new album comes out, it's on Spotify, I'm sure they see a substantial number of plays. I'm sure. However, that means they're going to get a lot of money. Well, maybe not a lot of money, but money that they might not have otherwise gotten. But if you're a small band, let's say, our review last week for Julia Kostarova, I believe her album's on Spotify, what does she stand to gain? Because even if she has 1,000 fans and they each listen to her album, 100 times each, it's still not going to put her in the top bracket. So now you're talking artists, small artists could be getting a total of 0.000001% of that revenue. They might be seeing very, very little, if anything, based on the number of plays alone. 5 million premium users, plus I can't even imagine how many free users. I think that it's just not... It doesn't seem like a viable way for a small artist to make money. Now, there's exposure to be had, which is great, but it doesn't really seem like it's allowing for artists to grow as much as it is just putting their music out there in hopes that something happens. Now, on the flip side of that, obviously, if people are not paying for music at all, if you're one of those people who downloads exclusively, and I mean download illegally, then obviously Spotify gives the artist something where before there was nothing. So I guess technically in that sense, it makes perfect sense for Spotify to be, the wave of the future. However, there are 3 people that I know, who I won't name, who, since signing up for the Spotify premium version, the $10 a month, $120 a year version, have decided that they will no longer purchase music. Not going to buy CDs, not going to pay for Amazon downloads or iTunes downloads. They're solely using Spotify because most of what they want is on Spotify, and in the pay version you can stream to your phone. So now your phone, whether it's an iPhone, an Android phone, whatever, now becomes a walking MP3 player with millions upon millions of songs in the library. So these people have made the decision that they don't have to pay for music anymore because they're paying for Spotify. Now, let's say you buy 1 CD a month, depending where you shop. I mean, let's just say that 1 CD is $10 a month. That's $120 a year. That's if you bought 1 CD a month. So if that was the case, then, okay, maybe Spotify offsets that slightly. But that money is not going towards the artist that you choose. So if you're, an Opeth fan, and you were buying CDs and now you're not because you have Spotify, Opeth is not getting $10 a month from you. I mean, they weren't really getting it before. It went to the labels and whoever else. But you aren't getting to decide where your money goes. You're not supporting an artist. You're supporting a system. You're supporting something else. So by not buying music anymore, these people are basically saying, I don't care where my money goes. I'm not the problem. But aren't they part of the problem? Isn't that part of why the music industry is so hard right now? And, on the Spotify website, if you read up on the economics of it, basically what they're saying is they're trying to convert people who wouldn't otherwise pay for music or would pay a lot less. They were saying that the average download purchaser, so iTunes, Amazon, etc., spends about $60 a year on music, because they buy singles typically. They don't always buy full albums. So if you get that person to go from paying $60 a year to $120, yes, the music industry has gotten an extra $60 a year. And, if you do that, they're saying 40 million people pay for downloads. So if all of them become Spotify users, yes, you're accruing a lot of money on behalf of the music industry. But again, it can't be a one or the other thing. It can't be, well, I have Spotify, so I won't buy music. Well, I have Spotify, so I won't use iTunes anymore. Because that $120 a year, even if 5 million people are giving that $120 a year, that is not enough to support every artist on Spotify. And it's not enough for you to pay that $10 a month in hopes that the artists that you like, the artists that maybe you listen to more than everyone else, are going to get paid enough to maintain viability in this market. I'm hoping this all makes sense, because this has been, a huge thought process for me over the last couple of weeks, because I've been listening to people talk about Spotify, and again, it's a good service, and it's a good service, but it's a good service for the listener, not so much for the artists and the rights holders. Because I can't imagine that, a band like Blizzard at Sea, if they were on Spotify, is going to make any money. Because, it's just not, it's not set up that way. And again, I'm not disputing that their method of paying the artists is not fair, because it is. Theoretically, if you have the most listens on there, you should get the most money, right? I mean, that makes sense to me. But like I said, you don't really get to choose where the money goes, because Fall Out Boy's going to get a ton, Julia Kostarova's not going to get enough. That's just the way it is. Now, as far as I can tell, this is why Bandcamp remains the best option, because bands are responsible for promoting themselves, yes, but Bandcamp also, has their featured artists, and Bandcamp has the catalog of everything, and if you want to listen to metal, you click on metal, and it gives you 1,000 suggestions, and there's a purchase part, built into that. So yeah, you can stream the albums on Bandcamp all you want, but when the time comes and you decide you want to download it, you can download it, and they have those name your price options where you can give $1, $5, $0, $100, whatever you want. So that is a way for bands to get their money back directly. Bandcamp keeps 10%, which I think is fair for hosting the service and such. So for every, let's say it's a $5 download, Bandcamp is keeping 50 cents. And the band is getting $4.50. And because, in the digital age, digital downloads really don't, you've recorded the album, so you're making your money back through digital downloads. And I think that that's a better business model for the bands themselves. Obviously, you're not going to see Fall Out Boy run a Bandcamp site like that, or I think Baroness actually does, oddly enough. But there has to be some sort of integration where users can use Spotify to discover music, but do something to ensure the artists they like are going to get paid fairly. So, just, if any of you guys have an opinion on this, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear information. Maybe I got something wrong. Maybe I missed something completely. Like I said, I've tried to read everything I could possibly read. I've listened to people who use Spotify. I've listened to people who refuse to use Spotify. I've used the free version. I was on one of the beta tests initially, and like I said, I think it's a great service for the listener. I buy CDs. I fully admit, there you go, I'm a CD addict and I buy a lot. And, every band that I review on the site has either been a promo or I've bought the album. And a lot of times it's both. Because I think we should support the artists that we like. And I don't mean, maybe, I mean unconditionally support the artists you like. I know times are tough, the economies are bad across the world, but if artists want to give away their music for free, they'll do that. I know on the Facebook page for Glory Hammer, lost the name of the band there, they had actually put something on their Facebook page saying, hey, listen, there's, bad rips of our album floating around on the internet, in torrent form. Please, if you're gonna download the album, make sure you get a good one. And I like that attitude. I like we want you to hear our music more than we want you to, give us money. But we owe it to the bands that we like to make sure they get paid for what they do. If you went to work and for a year, your boss just decided he didn't want to pay you because you're, for whatever reason, I just don't have the money, I'm not going to pay you. That just doesn't work. So we got to find a middle ground here. So I don't think Spotify is the answer. I think it started a conversation. I know they're launching a new service from the people who make the Beats headphones. There's going to be a Beats music service, which I believe Trent Reznor is working on, which I think is interesting because he's done a lot for the business model of the music industry. So I think that a little competition might help to drive profits for bands, labels, artists, and make this a more fair exchange. To Spotify's credit, I don't want to seem like I'm just knocking it. They do pay out 70% of the money that comes through to them. That other 30% obviously goes to server upgrades, everything else. So I credit them for doing the right thing and giving out that high a percentage of the profits, because I think a lot of other services might not do that. So I think the conversation has started, and now I think that we as a collective, as music fans, not just metal fans but music fans, need to do something to get this distribution of money back to where it should be. So when you see a band, at a show, I know, buy a t-shirt, but buy the album. Make sure that band understands that you appreciate the music and the work that they put into it. Because they can't, everyone thinks that when you buy a ticket to a show that the band suddenly gets money for that. And they do get something, but there's a lot of fees involved. And when you buy a t-shirt, okay, you bought a t-shirt, but, the t-shirts cost money to make. This isn't free. Bands are paying for a lot of stuff. So we need to find a way to make sure that they're getting paid for what they do, and that we show them from our side that we appreciate it and that we will do our best to support them. So there you go. That's my take on Spotify right now. I'm curious what you guys think. Like I said, feel free, correct me, give me your input, whatever you want to do. If you're a Spotify user, why are you a Spotify user? Do you still buy music? If you're not a Spotify user, why not? I want to hear it all. So make sure you hit me up with some comments here and let me know what you think. And guys, I'll see you next week for another podcast. Keep reading the site, sorroweternal.blogspot.com. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/sorroweternal. Twitter handle, sorroweternal. We're on Google+, sorroweternal. We're on Tumblr, sorroweternal.tumblr.com. And anything else. We still have a MySpace. I don't know. Every now and then one of you guys clicks on that. So myspace.com/sorroweternal. Have a good weekend.